Welcome back to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We are doing something a little different today.
A bit of a change of scenery.
A huge change. Usually, when we talk about ancient mythology, our compass points south.
Right, towards the classical world, the stuff you read in school.
Exactly. We're looking at the marble columns of Rome. We're looking at the Parthenon in Greece. We look at these very static, very stone-carved versions of history.
Set in stone, literally.
Literally. But today, we are turning the map around. We're looking north. And we aren't looking at stone. We're looking at something living.
Yes.
We are heading into the forests of the Baltic region, Lithuania, Latvia, and the lands of the old Prussians. Our sources for this episode call it the Verdant Archive.
It is such an evocative phrase, isn't it? The Verdant Archive.
It really is.
It immediately sets the stage. You aren't walking into a library with dusty scrolls.
No.
Yeah.
You're walking into a forest. And that's the hook for me, because when I started reading through this stack of research, I went in expecting the usual stuff.
Yeah.
A version of Zeus throwing lightning bolts, maybe some guys with swords. But the sources, they stop you right there. They say, no, put that away.
Yeah.
This isn't about gods fighting on a mountain.
It really isn't. It's a completely different texture of belief, a different feel.
It's about gods who live in your farmhouse.
Yeah.
Gods who are swimming in the Baltic Sea while you're standing on the shore. It feels so much more
Immediate.
immediate. That's the word.
It is a theology of presence. That is the best way I've heard it framed. And to understand why it feels so different from, say, reading Homer or Virgil, you have to look at the timeline. This is the hidden gem of Indo-European history for a very specific reason.
The timeline is actually shocking. I had to double-check the dates in the notes because I genuinely thought it was a typo.
But it usually surprises people. It's not what you'd expect.
So we were talking about the Christianization of Europe.
Mm.
By the year 1000, maybe 1100, most of Europe is firmly Christian. The cathedrals are going up. But Lithuania doesn't officially convert until 1387.
1387. Just think about what is happening in the rest of the world then.
I mean, the Renaissance is practically booting up in Italy. Dante has already written the Divine Comedy, and yet up in Northern Europe, you have a fully functioning state-level pagan society.
Exactly. It was the last pagan state in Europe. And that matters for us today, scientifically speaking, because it means the data is much fresher.
Fresher in what way?
We aren't trying to reconstruct what people believed 3,000 years ago from broken pottery. We are looking at beliefs that were largely intact until the late Middle Ages. And in the rural areas, honestly, until the 20th century.
That's the resilience part the sources keep mentioning. But let's talk about how we know this because, you mentioned we don't have a Homer. There is no Baltic Bible written down in the year 1200.
No, nothing like that.
So where is this information coming from?
This is the coolest part of the research, I think. It comes from the Danas.
Danas. Okay, break that down for me.
So Dana is the word for a folk song. But don't think of a long ballad. Don't think of a big story with a chorus like Beowulf or something.
Right.
These are short, usually 4-line songs, quatrains, and they don't rhyme.
They don't rhyme. That seems hard to remember.
You would think so, but they rely on this very strict rhythm and meter. They have this drone-like, almost hypnotic quality to them. And for centuries, they weren't written down at all.
At all.
Not a word. They were just passed person to person, mouth to ear.
Okay, but then how do we have them now? How do we have a stack of research papers on them if they weren't written down?
Well, in the 19th century, there was this massive nationalist push to collect them before they vanished. And this brings us to one of my favorite visuals in the entire packet you sent over, the Danuskepis,
The cabinet.
a cabinet of folk songs. Imagine a physical cabinet built by a man named Kriginotis Barons. It looks, almost like a library card catalog, but taller.
Okay, I can picture that.
And inside it are thousands of tiny drawers. And in those drawers are little slips of paper scraps, really. Some of them are written on the back of cigarette cartons or old receipts, whatever was on hand.
And each one of those slips is a song.
Each slip is one dana, and there are over 217,000 of them in that cabinet.
Wait, 217,000?
Just in that one collection. The total number collected now is well into the millions. It's actually considered a UNESCO Memory of the World artifact.
That is a staggering amount of data. I mean, if you think about the Iliad, it's long, but it's one story from one perspective.
Right.
This is 217,000 distinct fragments of a worldview.
Precisely. It's a mosaic. And here's the crucial distinction, and this is why the mythology feels so different. Who wrote the Iliad? Men. Who were the priests in Rome? Men. But who sang the Danas?
The sources say it was primarily women.
It was the women. Overwhelmingly, this entire belief system, this massive archive of the human soul, was preserved, composed, and transmitted by mothers and daughters in their daily lives.
That has to change the flavor of the myths, right? If the primary vehicle for the religion is the female voice, you aren't going to get a lot of, glorious war stories.
You hit the nail on the head, and we will see this in a big way when we get to the sun goddess later. But yes, the Danas are intimate. They're domestic. They aren't about slaying dragons to save a princess. They are about the sun warming an orphan. They are about talking to a snake under your stove. They are about the sanctity of the everyday.
Which brings us to the people themselves. We mentioned Lithuania, but who else are we talking about here? The sources mentioned the Old Prussians, which, I have to admit, when I hear Prussian, I think of German guys in spiked helmets.
Right, and that is a very common confusion. But no, the Old Prussians were a Baltic tribe, linguistic cousins to the Lithuanians and Latvians. They had absolutely nothing to do with Germans originally.
So what happened to them? Why are they Old Prussians?
They were the ones who didn't survive the history. They were conquered during the Northern Crusades, assimilated, and eventually their language and their entire culture went extinct. So when we talk about Baltic mythology today, we're mostly looking at the survivors, the Lithuanians, and the Latvians.
And even for them, it wasn't easy. You mentioned the conversion in 1387, but the notes talk about this fascinating concept of double faith. What does that actually look like on the ground?
So imagine you are a Lithuanian farmer in, say, the year 1500. The official law of the land says you're a Catholic, you go to church on Sunday, you cross yourself.
Okay.
But when you go home, you still pour a little bit of beer on the ground for the Earth Mother before you drink.
Just to be safe. Or is it deeper than that?
I think it's deeper. It's that the conversion was, at its core, a political maneuver by the Grand Dukes to stop the Crusades. It wasn't a spiritual revolution for the guy plowing the field, so they layered it. The Virgin Mary started to look a lot like the ancient sun goddess.
Ah, so they found parallels.
They mapped the new onto the old. The Christian saints took on the attributes of the old thunder gods and local spirits.
So it's a veneer. You just scratch the surface of the Catholic tradition in this region, and the pagan wood is right there underneath.
And it's not deep down. It's right there. That's why we call it the verdant archive. It never really died. It just grew new leaves.
I love that image. So we have the context. We have this massive database of songs preserved by women, surviving against all odds. Let's open the cabinet. What does this universe actually look like? If I'm a Baltic pagan and I close my eyes and picture the cosmos, what do I see?
You see a tree.
A tree.
The world tree. In Latvian, it's Ostras Koks, the tree of dawn. In Lithuanian, Pasaulio Metis. And this isn't just a metaphor for nature, it is the structural engineering of the entire universe.
Lots of cultures have world trees, though. I mean, the Norse have Yggdrasil. Is this the same kind of thing?
It's similar. It's definitely that shared Indo-European root, but the description in the Danas is incredibly specific and, frankly, much more blinged out than the Norse version.
Blinged out?
It's metallic. The songs describe the tree as having roots of copper, a trunk of gold, and leaves of silver.
Copper, gold, silver. That feels very deliberate, very structured.
It's a hierarchy of value and function. The copper roots go down into the underworld. That's the realm of the past, the ancestors, the chthonic powers.
Chthonic, that's one of those $5 words.
Sorry, hazard of the trade. It just means of the earth or subterranean. Think deep, dark soil, snakes, toads, roots, all that good stuff.
Got it. So copper is the deep earth, the past.
Then you have the golden trunk. That is the middle world.
Yeah.
That's us, humans, animals, the daily life of the farm, the present.
And the silver leaves.
That is the sky. The heavens, the realm of the gods, the celestial bodies, and the birds. And that metallic imagery is important because it suggests that the universe isn't made of dead wood. It's made of precious, durable, shining material.
It connects everything. The axis mundi.
Exactly, the central killer. But here is where Baltic myth takes a hard left turn from what you might expect from other creation stories. Usually, when we hear a creation myth, we think, in the beginning there was nothing, and then God said, let there be light.
Boom. Physics. A big bang.
Right. Matter from nothing. But the Baltic creation story isn't about physics. It's about a wedding.
A wedding.
It's a celestial wedding. The entire cosmos is described not as a physical event, but as a family drama. The sun, the moon, the stars, they aren't gas balls burning in a vacuum.
They're people.
They're relatives. They are husbands, wives, daughters, sons, and orphans.
So the reason the sky looks the way it does is because of family dynamics?
Hey, it's a soap opera written in the stars. And to understand the drama, we first need to meet the cast.
Let's meet them. Who's at the top of the silver branches of this tree?
At the very top, you have Dievas, or in Latvian, Dievs.
And that translates to God.
Roughly, yes. The word is actually linked to the very old Proto-Indo-European word dies, which means daylight or bright sky. So he is the quintessential sky father.
Okay, Sky Father. So I'm picturing Zeus. Big beard, throwing lightning, sleeping with everything that moves.
And you would be completely wrong.
Okay, Bill leads Zeus.
Dievas is calmer, much calmer. He is a guarantor of order. He isn't the chaotic storm. He is the blue sky behind the storm.
So he's more of a concept than a character.
Almost. He's often depicted as a wise old man who comes down to visit farmers, sometimes in disguise.
Like a celestial landlord checking on the property.
A bit. He checks to see if you are being hospitable, if you are keeping the farm tidy and observing the moral laws. He is benevolent, but he's also distant. He sets the rules, but he doesn't really drive the plot. He isn't the protagonist of the story.
So if he's the dad who is away at work, or maybe the retired grandfather who is running the house.
The mother, and this is the most important character in the entire mythology. We have to talk about Sala.
The sun.
The sun. But again, you have to check your assumptions at the door. In Greek myth, the sun is Apollo, a guy with a bow. In Egyptian myth, it's Ra King on a throne.
Right. Masculine.
In almost every Western tradition, the sun is masculine. It's a warrior. It's a conqueror. It's a source of abstract power.
But not here.
Not here. In the Baltic, the sun is a mother. Sala is the solar matriarch, and this changes everything about the vibe of the universe.
How so? How does swapping the gender change the theology that much?
Well, think about what a sun king does. He commands, he burns, he watches from above, he's abstract. But a sun mother...
Okay.
The sources, the Danas, describe her as affectionate. She warms, she protects, and most interestingly, she works.
She works.
She is a working mom. The imagery is very kinetic. She isn't just sitting on a throne somewhere. She is driving a chariot with copper wheels drawn by horses that never sweat. She is laboring across the sky every single day to ensure that her children, us, the plants, the animals, have what they need to survive.
There was a detail in the reading that I absolutely loved about sunset.
The bathing.
Yes. Tell me about the bathing.
So you're standing on the beach in Lithuania or Latvia. The sun is setting over the water. The sky turns red. The air gets cool. Why?
Scientific answer. Atmospheric scattering of light waves. Mythological answer.
Mythological answer. She is washing the car.
I love that. It's so relatable.
She descends into the Baltic Sea to wash the soot and the dust of the world off her face and off her horses. The water turns red because she is washing away the day's heat and grime. The air cools because the fire is being quenched.
It's such a tactile image.
Yeah.
It implies that she gets dirty. She's down here in the muck with us.
Exactly. She isn't untouched perfection. She participates in the world. And that makes her approachable. You can talk to her. You can ask her for help. She's not a distant king.
But even the sun goddess has problems. We talked about a soap opera. And apparently her marriage is rocky.
To put it mildly, this is the celestial divorce. This is the central conflict of the Baltic sky.
So she's married to the moon.
Manolis, or Monas,
Yep.
the moon. So you have the union of day and night. It should be the ultimate power couple, right? The foundation of the cosmos. But the moon is. Well, just look at him. He changes, he waxes, he wanes. He's reliable in his unreliability. And in the myth, he is a cheater.
Classic moon behavior. Who does he cheat with?
The morning star. Venus. Her name is Argina.
Ouch. That's a betrayal on a cosmic scale.
And in some versions of the song, the morning star is Solo's own daughter.
Double ouch.
Yeah.
So this is a full-blown scandal in the heavens.
It is. And it explains why the sky works the way it does. The sun and the moon are divorced. That's why they almost never appear in the sky at the same time. She rules the warm day. He wanders the cold night alone. The family unit is broken.
And there is a punishment involved, right? Someone has to step in to enforce the law here.
And a Procunus.
The thunder god.
The thunder god. Now, he is a bit more like Thor or Zeus. He has the axe, he has the hammer, he is the enforcer of cosmic justice. When he catches the moon cheating, he strikes him with his sword.
And that's the phases of the moon, the marks on his face.
That is the etiology. When you see a crescent moon, you are seeing a moon that has been cleaved by the thunder god's sword as punishment for adultery. In another version, Sala herself scratches his face in anger, and that's what creates the lunar craters, the Maria.
So he heals up to a full moon, he messes up again, he gets cut again.
Over and over, it's a cycle of crime and punishment written across the night sky. But notice the result. The universe is defined by this duality, mother versus father, warmth versus cold, light versus dark. A fundamental rift.
And that leaves us humans in the middle. If the cosmic parents are divorced, what does that make us?
It makes us orphans.
And this, I think, is the most profound part of the research for me. The theology of the orphan. Can we unpack that?
Absolutely. In a lot of mythology, the hero is the strong guy. Hercules, Achilles.
I think Gilgamesh.
But in Baltic folklore, the central figure, the one who receives the most divine attention, is often the Nashalajai, the orphan.
Because in that kind of society, who is the most vulnerable person?
Exactly. It's the kid with no parents, no lineage, no inheritance, no protection. If you have no parents, you have no social standing. You are literally out in the cold.
But the mythology steps in to fill that void.
It does. There is this beautiful concept that when your biological mother dies, the sun becomes your mother.
The sun warms the orphan, who has no mother to warm him.
That's the Dana. And think about the powerful logic there. Biological mothers are human. They get sick, they die, they can be cruel or neglectful. But the sun...
She rises every day.
Every single day. She never forgets you. She is the ultimate security in a harsh world. She wraps that golden silk, her rays, around everyone, regardless of their status.
It's a democratization of love, almost.
It is. And
Wow.
she doesn't just watch, she feels. The sources talk constantly about the tears of the sun.
Which brings us to something listeners might actually have in their jewelry box right now. Amber.
Gintaris. Baltic gold.
I've always just thought of amber as fossilized tree sap.
It's
But in myth,
In the myth, they are the solidified tears of the sun goddess. She weeps for the hardships of humanity, for the orphan, for her broken marriage, and those tears fall into the sea and harden. So when you pick up a piece of amber on the beach, you aren't just holding a fossil.
you're holding a piece of divine empathy.
You're holding a tear. The landscape itself is charged with divine emotion.
That is a beautiful thought to hold on to.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the sky father who is distant, the sun mother who is crying for us, and the moon who is dealing with his own drama. But that's all happening up there in the silver leaves. What is happening down here?
Down here, in the golden trunk and copper roots, you have the earth,
Yamina.
Amina. And unlike the Sky Father, she isn't distant at all.
No. This is the core of that green theology we mentioned at the start. Yamina isn't a goddess of the earth who lives in a palace somewhere. She is the earth. She is the moist black soil that you walk on.
There is a ritual mentioned in the text that really stuck with me, a morning ritual.
The kissing of the earth.
Yeah. Can you imagine that being part of your daily routine? It was customary. Upon waking up in the morning and again before going to sleep at night, a person would physically touch their lips to the ground. It was a liturgy of gratitude.
It's so personal.
You are acknowledging that everything you are, everything you eat, comes from this living entity beneath your feet. It's so intimate. It's not kneeling in a church looking up. It's looking down and connecting.
And you didn't just kiss her, you fed her.
The beer libation.
Right.
This was huge. Before plowing a field or starting a harvest festival, the first ladle of beer didn't go into your mouth. It went onto the ground.
Zeminel, dear earth, help us prosper.
Exactly. You are returning the product of the harvest, the grain that made the beer back to its source. It's a closed loop, a cycle of reciprocity.
And because she is a living entity, you can't just treat the dirt however you want. The sources mention all these taboos.
Strict taboos. Spitting on the earth, that's a grave sin. Striking the earth with a stick without a good reason, like plowing, forbidden. You don't hit your mother.
Now, when we move north to Latvia, this concept of the mother just explodes. It's not just one earth mother. It seems like there was a mother for literally everything.
It's the pantheon of functionality. It is wild. In Latvian theology, the archetype of the mother fractures into dozens, maybe hundreds, of specialized deities. You have Merla Mate, the forest mother, Uras Mate, the sea mother.
But it gets way, way more specific than that.
Oh, yes, Suvi Mat.
The mushroom mother.
The mushroom mother, yes.
I love her. I want to meet her. That's my favorite so far.
And Lina Mate, the flax mother. Lazdu Mate, the hazelnut mother. There's a mother for every conceivable part of the natural world you interact with.
So if I'm out in the woods picking mushrooms, I'm not just dealing with nature as a general concept. I'm dealing with a specific divine intelligence that governs mushrooms.
Exactly. It highlights an animistic worldview where every patch of flax, every grove of hazel trees has a divine volition. You are never alone. You are always negotiating with the spiritual authority of that specific location or that specific resource.
So that's the outdoors. But what about the indoors?
Yeah.
Because if the gods are everywhere, they are definitely in the living room.
The farmhouse, the Sotiba, was a sanctuary, a microcosm of the cosmos. And it had two main spiritual pillars, the fire and the snake.
Let's start with the fire, Gabija.
Gabija is the living spirit of the hearth. Her name comes from the word gopti, meaning to cover or protect. This refers to the nightly ritual where women would bank the coals with ash to keep the fire alive until morning, putting the fire to bed.
She's treated like an honored guest, right?
A guest and a judge. Women would offer her salt and bread. They would leave a bowl of clean water near the hearth so she could wash herself after the day's work. But here is the kicker. Gabija was a moral barometer for the household.
How so?
If the family behaved badly, if there was shouting, swearing, or stomping around being disrespectful, Gabija would get offended.
And when a living fire gets offended?
She goes for a walk, which is a very polite, very chilling way of saying she burns the house down. So the physical safety of your home depended directly on your politeness and your moral conduct.
Okay, now the snake. This is the part that I think is going to be the hardest for our listeners to wrap their heads around. Hiltis, the grass snake.
This is the aha moment for anyone coming from a Judeo-Christian background. We are trained from childhood to see the serpent as the enemy, the deceiver in the garden, the dragon to be slain.
Right. Kill it with fire. Or a shovel.
But in Baltic mythology, the Hiltis is the beloved guardian of the home.
They kept them as pets.
Under the stove, or even under the marriage bed. These are non-venomous grass snakes, and they were considered part of the family. They were fed milk.
Picture that for a second. A farmer pouring a little saucer of milk and a snake sliding out from under the stove to drink it.
And the children playing nearby, totally unfazed. It was normal.
Why? What do they represent?
Fertility, wealth, health, and the blessing of the earth. The spots on the grass snake's head were seen as a crown. It was the king of snakes. If you had a snake living in your house, you were blessed. It meant the earth loved you and your home was prosperous.
And if you killed one?
Catastrophe. Absolute catastrophe. Killing a Hiltis was a crime against the cosmos. It was believed to bring death or poverty to the farm. And going back to Salo, the sources say the sun goddess herself would cry for 9 days if she saw a dead grass snake.
That is how connected the domestic snake in your kitchen was to the celestial mother in the sky.
It really flips the script on the imagery we're used to. Instead of St. George killing the dragon, you have a farmer feeding milk to a snake under his bed to make sure the crops grow.
It creates a completely different relationship with nature. You aren't conquering it, you are cohabitating with it.
Precisely. You are roommates with the divine.
I want to touch on some of the other symbols and secrets in the sources. We have the snake, which is very active, very dynamic, but there's also the toad.
Krupus, the toad.
Is the toad as beloved as the snake?
Not exactly beloved, but deeply respected. If the snake is the active, mobile, masculine spirit, the toad is its opposite. It's the static, heavy, chthonic power of the earth.
Clonic again.
It represents intuition, the wisdom of the damp, dark places. It is the subconscious to the snake's conscious mind. It just sits there, absorbing the earth's wisdom.
And looking up again, we have Ocyclus. We mentioned him briefly as the morning star, the one who had the affair with the moon.
Right. In Latvian tradition, Ocyclus is the little god, the celestial groom. But his symbol is fascinating. The octagram, the 8-pointed star.
I feel like I've seen that on knitwear, like on mittens and sweaters from that region.
It is everywhere in Baltic folk design. It was originally used for protection against evil spirits, but in the modern era, it was readopted as a symbol of Latvian independence. It's a great example of how these ancient symbols get repurposed for political identity.
And then there is Medena, the forest goddess. She's a bit wilder.
The ruler of the hunt, but also the protector of the forest. She is a shapeshifter. She appears as a she-wolf or a bear. Her sacred animal is the hare.
The sources mentioned hare churches, which sounds adorable.
It sounds cute, but it's actually quite solemn. Hare churches were sacred stones in the forest where offerings were left. But the most important thing about Medena is the taboo on iron.
Iron?
You could not bring iron weapons or tools, especially an axe, into a sacred grove in Alka.
Why no iron?
Think about what iron represents. It's the tool of cutting, of dominance, of human technology over nature. The sacred grove is a place of natural order. If you bring an axe, you are bringing violence and human will into a holy space. Trees in these groves had to die and rot naturally. You couldn't harvest them.
It's an ecological sanctuary, basically, a protected nature reserve.
It is ancient conservationism, codified as religious law. You leave a space where nature rules itself, untouched by human technology.
So we have covered birth, life, the house, the forest. We've talked about death, the afterlife, what happens when it's all over.
Villainous. This is the time of spirits, occurring in autumn, usually around November. The concept is that the veil between the worlds thins.
This sounds a bit like Samhain or Halloween.
It shares that common Indo-European root. But the focus here is on hospitality. You don't hide from the ghosts or try to scare them away. You invite them to dinner.
A ghost dinner party.
Literally. The Vul, the souls of the ancestors, are invited to the family table. You set a place for them. You pour mead or beer onto the ground or into the fire for them. You share the harvest with the people who helped build the lineage that you benefit from. It's not scary. It's respectful.
And where do they go after dinner? Where is the actual afterlife?
They travel, and we go back to the stars here. The souls travel to the afterlife, called Dausos, via the Milky Way.
Which they call the Path of Birds.
Pakachitakas. And this connection to actual birds is very literal.
Explain that.
Well, think about autumn. What happens in the sky besides the leaves changing?
Birds migrate. They fly south for the winter.
Exactly. The migration of birds in autumn was seen as the physical manifestation of souls leaving the world of the living. You look up, you see a flock of cranes or geese flying south along the Milky Way, and you think, there go the ancestors.
And implied in this whole cycle is reincarnation.
Yes. The energy doesn't just disappear. It returns to the earth, to the cosmos, to be recycled. It's a wheel. It's all connected.
And speaking of wheels, the wheel of the year is how these myths are lived out in time. We have the winter solstice and the summer solstice as the two major poles.
The two poles of the solar journey. Let's start with the darkness. Winter. Zimasvotki in Latvia or Kučios in Lithuania.
In Latvia, they have this amazing tradition of dragging the log.
Blua Vilshana. This is visually wild. You have masked revelers, people dressed as animals or spirits, dragging a heavy oak log through the village from house to house.
What's the point of the log?
The idea is that the log absorbs all the bad luck, the failures, the darkness, and the sorrows of the past year. It's like a spiritual magnet for bad vibes.
So you drag it through town, it soaks up everyone's problems.
And then, at the end of the route, they burn it in a massive bonfire. You symbolically destroy the past to allow the sun and the community to be reborn. It is a psychological reset button for the entire village.
And then in Lithuania, the Christmas Eve dinner, Kučios, is very solemn, not a big party.
It is very quiet and reflective. They eat kučiokai, these small, hard dough balls soaked in poppy milk. The dough balls represent the souls of the ancestors, or bread for the spirits. And the poppy milk, think about a poppy head. It has thousands of tiny seeds. It symbolizes abundance, but also the multitude of stars and souls in the cosmos.
So you're eating the cosmos on the darkest night of the year.
In a way, yes.
Fast forward 6 months, summer solstice, Jai in Latvia or Rasos in Lithuania. This is the big party.
The apex of light. Bonfires on the hills to feed the sun and keep it strong. But the central myth here is the quest for the fern flower. Haparchioschitis.
Ferns don't have flowers. That's Botany 101.
Exactly. That is the entire point. It is a quest for the impossible. The legend says that on this one night, at midnight, the fern blooms with a magical, glowing flower. If you find it, you gain omniscience. You can understand the language of animals. You gain immense wealth.
But there's a catch.
Yeah.
Of course there's a catch.
There is always a catch. The sources warn that finding the flower often costs you your soul, or your mind, or your connection to your community. The lesson is fascinating. Individual gain without community is a curse. You might get the magic flower, but you lose your place in the village. It reinforces that core Baltic value of togetherness over individual ambition.
We've covered the ancient history, but I want to bring this into the modern world, because one of the most surprising things in the research is how this mythology helped bring down the Soviet Union.
The Singing Revolution. This is one of the most powerful modern examples of myth as political resistance.
So, set the scene. We are in the late 1980s. The Baltics are occupied by the Soviets.
Cultural expression is suppressed. Speaking the language is discouraged. But people start singing. They gather in the thousands and they start singing the Danas. They use these ancient folk songs to assert their national identity. But there's one song in particular, a modern composition based on myth called Sol Perkons Dagava.
Sun, Thunder, Dagava River.
Yes. The lyrics are a direct invocation of the mythic landscape. It starts, "The sun placed Latvia, where the ends meet white sea, green land." It frames the nation not as a Soviet republic, but as a divine creation of the sun goddess.
And the thunder part.
Thunder strikes the devils.
Subtle. Very subtle.
In the context of the 1980s, you didn't have to be a genius to figure out who the devils were. It was a way of shouting, "Get out of our country," using the language of ancient myth, a language the occupiers couldn't easily censor. And it worked. It galvanized the population.
The sources even mention that this song was adapted by the Catalan independence movement recently.
That is the power of these symbols. They are universal. The idea of the land and the sun and the people being fundamentally connected is transferable to any culture fighting for its identity.
And today,
Yeah.
this isn't just history, right? There are people actively practicing this as a religion.
Yes, the movements are called Romuva in Lithuania and Dievturība in Latvia. These aren't LARPers playing dress-up on weekends. These are officially recognized Reconstructionist religious movements. They view this as a viable, modern spiritual path.
So they're lighting the fires, honoring Himina.
They are. They sing the Dainas, they celebrate the solstices, they see it as a way to reconnect with an indigenous European spirituality, one that's deeply rooted in ecological stewardship.
Which brings us right back to that term we started with, green theology.
That is the big takeaway here. In a modern world where we feel so disconnected, where our food comes from a factory thousands of miles away and our heat comes from a vent in the wall, Baltic mythology offers a different way of seeing.
It says the earth is holy.
It says the earth is holy and you should kiss it. It says the fire in your hearth is alive and you should feed it. It says the snake is your brother, not a monster to be killed.
And the sun is your mother.
Who works hard for you every single day. It is a worldview that demands respect for the immediate physical world around you. It finds the divine not in a distant heaven, but in the berries in the forest, in the amber on the shore, and in the stars on the path of birds.
So the next time you are at the beach and you see a piece of amber, remember, you might be holding a tear of the sun.
That is a wrap on our deep dive into the solar matriarch.
It has been a journey.
A huge thank you to everyone listening. If you enjoyed this trip into the Verdun archive, make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps us keep the fires burning.
Just like Gabicha.
Exactly. Until next time, keep looking up.